This is an introduction to Spreadsheet Web for OVS-JG quarterly PMI reports. This video will walk you through the functions of Spreadsheet Web, including how to submit your organization's quarterly PMI report. In an email, your organization will be provided a link to the website and a unique username and password. When you log on, the first page displays all of the applications that your organization must complete each quarter. Your organization's user profile will have all of the PMI reporting applications preloaded into your dashboard prior to your first login. For this example, you can see that my organization is funded for and reporting on victim data, organizational data, and case management and advocacy. These categories will vary depending on your funding and reporting requirements. To access your organization's forms, you're going to click on the purple icon to the right of the application title. Once you click the purple icon, you'll see all of the forms for the entire fiscal year of reporting. You can identify which form you should complete by looking at the quarter column. If you have more than one grant that reports the same category of data, you can differentiate which application you should use by referring to the grant number column. To help organize the rows, you can sort the data using the columns. For example, if I wanted to see all of the Q4 data at the top, I could click on the arrows beside the quarter column title, and the data will sort. The same can be done for any of the columns. If you know which application you're ready to edit, you're going to click on the first button under the Actions category for that particular data set. So I'm going to do FY18 Q1. This is going to take you to the actual data entry page for that quarter. And once it loads, you'll see that some of the data has been pre-filled in for you. This form is where you will insert your quarterly PMI data. It should be noted that only one person can update a specific application at a time. All of the orange cells are data entry cells. There are a few drop-down menus throughout the PMI reporting applications. For example, if we go to organizational data, when you're reporting whether your organization tracked continuing education units or hours, the cell is going to be a drop-down menu. And you can see here, drop-down menus do have a white background. So most of the data entry cells are orange, but if it's a drop-down menu, it will still be white. When you're looking at the forms, you'll also notice that some of the cells have very small, and it's very hard to see, red corners. If you hover over the corner with your mouse, there is some additional information about the question being asked. For example, if you hover over the corner of the New Primary Victim tab, it will tell you that these are victims who began service during the reporting quarter. As you're filling out your application, the first thing to note is that there is a cell that asks you for the email address of the person completing the PMI submission. When the PMI application has been completed and you click Submit, this email address will actually receive an automatically generated email letting the user know that the PMI report has been successfully submitted. This can be any email address. It does not have to be the email address associated with the organization's user profile. And then under the Grant Manager box, you'll see an email address filled in for your grant manager or grant managers. For this example, I've used myself. Your grant manager will also receive an email once your PMI application has been submitted, and I'll show you that once we've gone through this entire form. So we're going to begin filling out the form. You'll see this yellow cell here at the top. It's one of several self-generating answers that you'll find throughout Spreadsheet Web. In previous iterations of the PMI report, the report asked you the unique number of primary victims or the unique number of secondary victims. That number is going to self-generate now based on what you fill out for new primary and continuing primary victims. So you don't have to worry about this. It's going to automatically add up what you report for new primary and new primary and continuing primary victims. Another feature of the Spreadsheet Web application are the self-generated totals boxes. So in this example, the grantee must report a gender for each new primary victim. So above, I listed that I worked with 10 new primary victims. As I'm completing the gender section on the form will indicate with a red or a green highlighted box whether or not the numbers add up. So right now I have 0 genders reported, which does not match the 10 new primary victims that I reported. So I'm going to fill this in. And you'll see once the data is accurate, this box will change from red to green. You can also check the data by looking at the numbers. So you'll see the 10 here, the total number of genders reported, matches the 10 new primary victims that have been served. And these boxes exist for all of the demographic information. So we're just going to fill this out. Great. At this point, I've completed all of the data that's required on this page. I have 2 options. If I want to save the data, I can click on Save. And a message is going to auto-populate that says, your PMI data has been saved. It has not been submitted. So this is useful if the user wants to take a break and come back to the data. Once it's been saved, you can log out of the system and return back at a later time or date to finish the data entry. I could also hit save and then move on to the next page of this document. So if you look at the top here, there are 3 tabs. So this is a 3-page document. Not all of them are. Some of them are 1 page, some of them are 2 pages. This one is 3 pages. And you can either move to the next page by clicking on the next button, or you can use these tabs here at the top just like you would use an Excel document, and you can actually click on the tab. So I'm going to click on the secondary victim data tab. For the purposes of this example, my organization does not work with secondary victims, so I'm going to go ahead and move to the total victim data page. At the top of the total victim page, you will see another self-generating number. And this number is the sum of the new primary and new secondary victims that you reported your organization worked with during the fiscal quarter. And this number is important for reporting purposes. For zip codes, PMI asks that you report a zip code for each new primary and new secondary victim. So this self-generating number at the top of the page shows how many zip codes should be reported. And if those numbers don't match up, when you scroll down here, you'll see that there's another one of these totals columns with the red and green boxes. If this number does not match this number, then it will highlight as red. If they do match, it will highlight as green. I'm just going to put in some data and scroll to the bottom. So once we've finished with all of the data in our form, there are a few options at the bottom of the final screen. Again, we could save the data. And this time, the pop-up message lets you know that if you want to send your PMI data to your grant manager, you're going to need to click the Submit button. So this is just in case folks accidentally click the Save button, but mean to click the Submit button. It will save all of your data, so if you get through all of the forms and you want time to come back and edit it, you can always save it on the last page as well. If you want to go back to a previous page, you can hit the back button, That will take you to the last page, or the second page of the document. And the submit button. So this is the button that you will click as the user once you have finished the data and you are ready to send it into your grant manager. So when you hit the submit button, it says your PMI victim data report has been submitted. We can check my inbox and see that the email has come through, which indicates which application was complete. So you see here it says the victim data quarterly submission was complete. That way you can track the status of all of the organization's quarterly applications, whether or not they have been submitted. So we'll go back to the application and look at one more function, and that is the export function. This button will export the data that you have submitted into an Excel document, and that will happen regardless of whether or not you have saved or submitted your data. So if you've gone through and filled it out without saving it or submitting it, if you hit this export button, it will still export for you. So we're going to hit the export button. It will download as an Excel file, and that Excel file looks identical to the form that you have just completed. One additional benefit to downloading the Excel file is that it will also download a tab that has charts that auto-populate based on the data that you submitted. So you can see the data that we submitted, these charts auto-populated. The data is here. And again, it looks identical to the form that you filled out. And it's just on this final page, it's got the various charts. These charts can be personalized, they can be edited, and you can change the legends, the color schemes, but it's a nice visual representation of the data that you've submitted. Now, once you have finished and you have saved or submitted the data, you can just close out the tab. One final feature that we're going to look at that's available on the dashboard for each application is that you can see the edit history for and restore a previous version of the data. So we just edited FY18 Q1. So if I click on this little icon that looks like a calendar, you can see all of the changes, when they've happened, what time they've happened. You can actually click and view what changes happened. And you can make a previous record active. So say I accidentally went in and deleted or altered data, and I want to go back to the previous way that the application had been stored. I can make that previous application record active, and it will modify the data. It will take back the mess up that I did, and it'll go back to the previous version of the data that I had submitted. So you'll complete this process for each of the applications that are on your organization's dashboard for each fiscal quarter. Finally, your data will be available to you for the entirety of the fiscal year. So you can go back, you can export the data several quarters later, and it will still be made available to you.